Welcome to another edition of the Book of Jake. My name is Jake Abdullah. I have a very special guest here who actually I linked up in LinkedIn, Rhys Williams or Rhys Woodfield, right?
My full name is Rhys William Woodfield, but people here call me Rhys William.
Okay, so Rhys Williams also a name of a football player from Liverpool,
yes,
which I'm a huge fan of. The club, not Rhys Williams, the footballer. Long story. Anyway, before we go anywhere, please like, share and subscribe. Again, we are talking to very interesting Malaysians. Ironically, he has been in Malaysia for 13 years, so we'll bestow upon you Malaysian citizenship.
Honorary Malaysian, right? For today, right?
And it's really interesting because Rhys, a bit of background about Rhys, he's got a very successful YouTube and also a blog, channel who talks about food, Matsalleh Cari Makan.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So before we get into that, tell us about your journey into Malaysia and what's the Matsalleh doing in Malaysia? He was settled down for almost a decade.
I think what's the journey sort of started unintentionally.
Okay.
I think that's how a lot of things happen, right? We sort of go with the flow. So I actually came to Malaysia on holiday in 2012.
Okay.
So it was just a holiday, I think 2-3 weeks. Came here just to sort of go around typical sort of tourist places.
How did you know that this is going to be a nice tourist destination? Or?
I think I was recommended a lot.
Okay.
And I mean, at that sort of time and that age, a lot of my friends were doing the traditional backpacking, right? Like starting around Southeast
So you would
Asia.
have been like 21 at that time?
I think that time would have been 2012, would have been around 20.
Okay. Oh.
So I didn't want to do the typical thing. So I thought I'd rather go to one country that's maybe a little bit off the typical path.
Okay.
But it has the same sort of things, you know, like nice.
We were colonized, come on.
Yes, right. Well, long before my time, right? Okay, wow.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that was how it started. And then when I came here on that trip, I just felt like, okay, 2-3 weeks is not enough for me. I wanted to come back. So a year later, I actually came back for longer. The plan was originally 2 months. Tried to extend beyond 2 months. It became 6 months, a year. And then now, you know, here we are.
It's 12 years. So what were you doing prior to coming here? What were you actually studying or were you working? Or?
So I actually finished my studies. I had started my own business. So we were doing digital marketing, a bit of content, website design, that sort of thing.
Okay.
I was doing that kind of, you could almost say freelance. Most of my clients we were working online.
Okay. So you could be a digital nomad.
Yes, exactly. And I think back then the concept of digital nomad was quite new. So I kind of found that, as long as the internet is good, I adjust my wake and sleep time to follow the UK time.
Okay.
It would actually run perfectly fine, even though I was in Malaysia.
Okay.
So that's how I sort of managed to, maybe we can make it work. And then, yeah.
That's fantastic. So have you moved your whole family here? Are you married? Kids?
So married now, well, not at the time, but now my wife, my son, we're all here in Malaysia. So we really feel quite established in Malaysia, I would say.
What's fascinating is, like I off and on spend a little bit time in UK, actually Liverpool, so Moscow, but you've lost your English accent. And you sound actually, if I close my eyes and when you speak, it sounds like a Malaysian trying to be Matsalleh than a Matsalleh trying to be Malaysian. So how did that happen?
It's actually quite funny because when I go back to the UK, I get this comment as well.
Okay.
Like my family and friends, they always look at me with a strange look like, this is not the Rhys, like the voice I remember, right? I think it's kind of like you end up following your surroundings. So even here, like in my office, we speak Malay. We sort of mix, you know, like very sort of Malaysian style, right? So I find I've kind of followed that accent.
That's because you're making a conscious effort. I worked a lot with Australians and English, and even after 20 years, they could not fathom a word in English in Bahasa Malaysia. One of these guys actually thought Jalan Sahala was the name of a road, and he thought Pusat Bandaraya was actually a suburb. So, you know, but you're actually, and I heard some of your videos, amazing. I played this for some of our producers here, and they says, hey, dia cakap Melayu lah. So how did that happen?
I think it kind of started when I first came here. I was very much in the expat bubble.
Okay.
So, you know, like
Bangsa.
like in that sort of zone, right?
Okay.
You know, eating British food and hanging out. And then I kind of felt like, okay, this is not really what I want. If I'm going to live in another country, I really want to expose myself.
So you consciously did that, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, so I consciously made a step out. I started trying to find back then I did a lot of hiking. So I'd find like groups on Facebook where people were doing hiking trips and I would join them. We'd go camping. And I made a conscious effort to say to everyone, don't treat me like a foreigner. Like speak Malay, let's talk, let's try local food. Don't do anything special for me to really try and mix in. And then, I mean, sometimes when you go hiking for like 2-3 days in the jungle, you end up just speaking Malay. So you're kind of forced to follow along, you know?
Okay.
That's kind of how it started. And then from there, it kind of just went, and then here we are.
So we'll get into the hiking dilemma or story in a bit, because he actually did get lost for a couple of hours. But Matsalleh Cari Makan, how did that happen?
Okay, so it actually started as a blog. So this was around 2014. So I'd been here for, I think, around 2-3 years at that point. I was starting to learn Malay, the language. So one of my friends said, this was back in the days of blogging, right?
Yes,
like Blogspot, etc. My friend said, oh, for her English, she wrote a blog in English just to practice writing. So she said, why don't you write one in Malay? So I thought, okay, why not? I mean, nobody's going to read it, right? So I would write about what I was doing, what I was eating. If you read it back now, it's very like, I think people say tunggang langgang, right? All the centers, everything, like all over the place, right? And then one day the blog got shared on Facebook.
Oh, wow.
Somebody found it, they shared it, and then it went sort of mini viral. Like, hey, this Matsalleh is writing a blog. And then from there, people started to follow it. And now it's like, okay, wow, I need to start writing for an audience. So I would write about food because I really like Malaysian food, write about traveling. And then after a while, people said, hey, why don't you start doing videos? So I started to just take out my phone, and like, if I go to Penang, I would eat some food. I would do like a selfie video, just talking. And it kind of snowballed from there, where people were asking, hey, do more videos, that it kind of became something more than just a blog. We would actually start to make content about food.
When you say we, who are we?
So I started myself. I started just doing very simple videos. And then after it started getting traction, I actually teamed up with another guy. So he had a background in video.
Okay.
So what we did is we teamed up. We started a YouTube channel where they would do the production, I would do the hosting.
What's that called?
That was called Destinasi TV.
Okay.
So when we started it, it was like a few thousand subscribers. Then we put all the Matsalleh Cari Makan content on there.
And it exploded, yeah.
I think it took a while. It didn't get immediately like viral. We had some good videos, but I think it was after around 2-3 years, we hit 100K subscribers. We started to, it started to become something serious. That's sort of how it started. That was very sort of like almost documentary style content. Like we would go to like Kelantan and spend like a whole day in the kitchen.
I've seen some amazing stuff where you got the ikan belut and
like a lot of stuff, right?
Really fascinating. So now where's your focus?
I mean, now that sort of content, I think still really does really well. People really enjoy the long form content. I've kind of found what's happened now is adapting to newer platforms. So things like TikTok, IG Reels, where people want faster content, a bit more visually fast moving. So now it's moved fully onto those platforms. So I guess our focus has sort of shifted there, where we're still doing the food content, but then it's more faster. It's more to entertainment than, I guess, education.
Okay. So coming back to this, so before we get into the interesting stuff about you, how does monetization work for you? What's your revenue model?
Okay, so when we first started on YouTube, I think there's a perception of YouTube makes a lot of money, right? So when we first started, the goal was, okay, we build a YouTube channel, we get the views, we make the money, that's how we monetize it. And in some ways, it is true. You do get paid for the CPM and everything. I think the challenge was when you run it as a business. So, I mean, at one point we had like 2 editors, we had a full team. Yes, you make money from YouTube, but you need hundreds of thousands, millions of views consistently. And then when you start having to, how do you say, like pay the cost of running it, actually the margin is not much. Not much. Yeah. So I think if you're an individual, like you're doing some mukbang, you just put the camera there, film by yourself, it's quite good revenue. But as soon as you start to turn it into a business, you need to find other streams. So what we started doing after having experience making content, and I mean, now what I would say most of my time is doing is making content for other people. So we have the team, we have the experience, we know how to make social media content. So now we're monetizing it from making content for other people. So sort of tapping into those resources. So we're still doing my content, but to be honest with you, most of the revenue comes from the content we create for other people. Now.
Who are other people? Are you talking about agencies or just content creators?
So now we have a few restaurants where we manage their social media. So we understand food content. So we go to their restaurant, we shoot the content, we post it out. We've got a few businesses as well, like mostly small businesses, I would say. I mean, we do work with bigger companies, bigger agencies. I feel like for the kind of content we do, it really fits all the small businesses where they're maybe looking to penetrate into social media. They don't have a budget to hire a big agency and spend a lot on like pumping out ads, but they just want some simple content to help grow their platform.
Okay.
That's where most of the revenue comes from now.
So you work with lots of new SME entrepreneurs and
yes.
stuff like that. What's fascinating is your prowess in Malay. Would you demonstrate?
Tak tahulah. Tak tahu nak cakap.
Saya pun boleh cakap Melayu.
Itulah. Tapi tak tahulah. Dia macam bila orang cakap on the spot kan, kita pun rasa macam tak tahu nak cakap apa kan.
So has this benefited you, your ability to speak? Because there's one thing I know, because I had to undo a lot of things because I worked for the government for a while and I speak fluent Malay, but I think in English. So the translation part comes, and it took me a time. What about you?
For me, I would say now it's the opposite. So like I kind of have two modes. It's almost like a switch where if you switch on English mode, the thoughts, everything is in English. So that's where my English accent will come out. If I'm making jokes, they'll be very British style. Then like sometimes it's like when you switch on I would say the Malay switch, it's like the thinking starts in Malay as well. So the real challenge for me is if I've been at the office all day talking in Malay, we're making Malay content, I've switched on my Malay switch, then suddenly I have to call my family.
And they're like, what?
Yeah, I'll be struggling to get the words out, like apa nak check, because you've switched the switch. So for me, I noticed that when I started dreaming in Malay. So I'd have dreams in Malay, and then it'd be like, okay,
tell me a dream in Malay.
It would just be like, it would be like a normal dream, right? Dreams sometimes they don't make much sense. Like it would be like an old friend from school or something would be happening. So it would be like my school in the UK, but they would be speaking Malay. So I was really like, okay, that's the point.
You crossed over, man.
Yeah, I know, right? Something's happened inside, right? Yeah.
So the fascination with food.
If you see some of my old videos, at one point I was like 140 kgs. I was quite...
You lost a lot actually, yeah.
I think one of the biggest things, and I think everyone would agree, Malaysia is a food heaven, right? And coming from the UK, where you can go from the south to north and it's just the
bland.
Bland, right?
Yeah, it's bland, yeah.
So for me as a British guy coming to Malaysia, seeing the food, that's one of the biggest things. And I thought, okay, I enjoy eating. People enjoy seeing me eat. There's so much food in Malaysia. It's a good, I guess, how do you say? I'm trying to think like bahan, right? It's a good ingredient, right, for content.
So of all the food that you have tasted in Malaysia, if you think about, I want to go back to that shop, or I want to go back to the place, top 5.
Okay, one of my favorite dishes in Malaysia is Nasi Kerabu. So
I lived in the east coast of Malaysia. Absolutely amazing, right?
So you know, right? When you get a good one, it's like, and it hits the spot.
Yeah,
if you have all the ulam, everything, you really get a good combo, right?
Yeah.
So there's one restaurant. It's not really a restaurant. It's more like a gerai in front of the guy's house in Kelantan. I don't even think it has a name. It's like the sort of place the locals know, like, oh, this guy in front of his house. Every time I go to Kota Baru, I have to go there for their Nasi Kerabu. So that's number 1. I think Nasi Lemak. Just because you can get Nasi Lemak anywhere.
Where?
There's a nice one near my house. Again, it's like very simple food.
Where do you live?
At Taman Desa.
Okay.
So it's just like some auntie at the side of the road, but it's like consistent. So
have you tried this Nasi Lemak Burung Hantu?
I haven't tried it, but everyone keeps telling me.
Yeah, I had it yesterday.
Right?
It's not too bad. Actually, I'm trying to get the owner here for podcast. He's a Liverpool fan, but I'm more interested in the Nasi Lemak Burung Hantu because it's amazingly nice. Yeah.
Yes, and also their marketing and their expansion has been crazy, right? But I haven't tried it myself yet. But I hear good stuff, so it's next on the list to try it, right?
Okay. What else?
Another dish I quite like is nasi kanda.
Okay.
I think, again, it's rice, right? So it don't sound very British, right? Top 3 is all rice, right? I think if you get a good combo of like the kuah, the everything is quite nice. What else? Satay. Satay is quite nice. I mean, we have satay in the UK.
But that's not satay. That's not satay.
It's not at all.
It's like peanut butter with some water as the dip sauce. This is terrible.
Yes, exactly, right? I quite like if you get anywhere where there's like, I guess you'd call it like lauk, but not just any one kind.
Oh, mixed lauk lah.
Yeah, like where it's like really like authentic. Sometimes you don't know the name of it, but you try it, it tastes good. But for me, I'm quite picky. Like someone has to bring me somewhere they recommend. I wouldn't just walk in because I don't know what any of it is, right?
Okay, so
that's the quick fire top 5.
Yeah. So very similar. I see like you're more partial to Malaysianized fusion stuff like that.
I think because my content is in Malay.
Okay.
And when we used to do that, we really get exposed to Malay food quite a lot.
Massive. So you've been in Malaysia for almost 12 years, right?
Yes, almost 12
12 years. And you've got the language. Do you have plans to get out of this region and expand?
I think for me, I like Malaysia. I'm really quite comfortable here. I think there's definitely room to expand, not to expand in a business sense, but to explore more. I really feel like I've spent a lot of time in Malaysia exploring. I would like to spend more time in countries nearby.
Okay.
But not in the immediate short term.
Okay.
I think it would be more like maybe in a few years, I would like to explore Indonesia more, maybe Thailand.
Somewhere. Now, it's really interesting that you say you really enjoy Malaysia. I mean, to be here for 12 years, you must absolutely love the country. You know, like I like being in Liverpool because I love the football team. But if you ask me to stay there for 12 months, the weather itself will just destroy my soul. And that's something that I think Malaysians need to understand, that how good they have it here.
I think there's a phrase, right? It's the
Grass is always
peribahasa,
greener.
Right? Yeah, right. Or the, how do you say, like hujan emas, hujan batu, right?
Yeah.
I think we tend to sometimes with our own surroundings, maybe we take for granted a bit. Like for me, the UK, I mean, growing up near London, kind of think like, it's just London, right? You know, so maybe it's a case of where you grow up, where you're used to, you do maybe take for granted a bit because you're used to it. Actually, sometimes you need to go other places. Yes.
Yeah.
And then you see, oh, actually, we do have it quite good where we are, right?
So you said you liked hiking, and there was a story that came out in, I think 2 years ago, or was it
2 years ago? Actually, this week is 2 years.
2 years ago. So you went to Kuala Tahan.
Yes.
And you got lost. Masuk alam bunian, yeah?
So actually, it's quite an interesting story because a lot of people ask me about it. I don't really talk about it so much because it was quite, I would say, a traumatic experience.
I can imagine, yes.
And one of the things I think when you're a content creator, you're putting out, when you're dealing with mass, there was a lot of comments like, oh, dia ni nak buat content je. So I kind of thought like, okay, if I start talking about it, am I going to add fuel to the fire that it was all like a marketing or a PR thing, you know? It was actually not really, looking back, a big deal. I was with my family. I took them to Taman Negara. We were on our way back to KL and we decided to drive towards some of the sort of more remote villages up Bola, Hulu, Timberling area. And we got to a junction where there was a sign that's had one of the names of this kampung, but it was an off-road trail. So we kind of thought, okay, well, there's a sign, you know, we'll drive down here and we'll see how it goes. We ended up going quite far into the jungle. It was very clear this wasn't the right way, but we couldn't turn around. And then the car actually got stuck in some mud in the middle of the jungle. And we were trapped there there was no phone signal, no other cars, nothing. So we had to wait for people to come looking for us more. I'd say it was quite traumatic experience because when you're kind of stuck somewhere in the jungle, or you assume the worst, right?
Of course.
And I mean, it was only like, I think just over a day. I mean, we had to sleep there overnight.
It can be traumatic, especially your wife and your kid. And then did you run out of water and food? And
foolishly, and this is one of the things a lot of people like to go me on, is I didn't pack any food or water because we were on the way back to KL. We thought we checked out.
So like, we can get that nasi kandar when we get back to KL, yeah.
Like all my hiking experience, right? You take spare clothes, water, everything. It's like for hiking, right? This we're in the car like,
start the Petronas lah.
Like, just stop on the way back, you know, right? So I didn't plan. So we didn't have any water or food. Luckily, my wife and son weren't with me at the time. It was just my mom, my dad, my brother and sister. So we were kind of stuck there. Like, what do we do? Do we try and walk out? I mean, if you look where we were, it was in the middle of, if you look on the map, it's just green. So we kind of had our Google Maps, you know, there's the cache, right, where you can see. So we could sort of see where we were. So we were faced with a decision. Do we wait for someone to come and rescue us?
Okay.
Or do we try and walk out? Foolish me and my brother, we thought, we can just walk to the road. So I think we walked for about 20 km there and back. Okay, we need to stay at the car. So luckily my wife realized, hey, it's supposed to be back tonight. She's the one who went and did the report. And then they found us quite quickly when they figured out where we were. I think at the time it was like, as somebody who used to do a lot of hiking and guiding my family, I should have known better, you know?
Yeah.
I think as well, it was quite interesting because the case sort of went viral. I think because it was the whole like this Matsalleh guy's lost, and then like people, it kind of, you know how it is, right? Stories like, you know, Alam Bunian, all this stuff, you know?
That would have been a nice story if you'd got into Alam Bunian and...
I mean, maybe not at the time, right? There was always two schools of thought, right? One was people who know the area and they were like, you guys really lucky nothing happened, you know? And then the people who don't know the area were like, Allah, ni belakang rumah, macam lalang belakang rumah dia. So it's like the locals there. I'm still in touch with a lot of the guys who were part of the rescue. They said we're really lucky because the area is quite a wild area. So I mean, there was all sorts of like elephant marks and people saying about tigers, all this stuff. So I think it could have been a lot worse. We're very lucky nothing happened.
That goes. But here's the crazy thing. Being Malaysian, most people actually don't get out of KL or don't get out of the city. And I've learned to travel a little bit. I hitchhiked as a boy after my O-levels. So I came here. So I spent a lot of time in Kelantan. I was a paddy farmer for a while and stuff like that. So I actually did that long before there was even mobile phone. So which is really amazing. But these days I feel people don't travel. Even internally and see the rest of the country. If you talk about Kuala Tahan or Gunung Tahan or these places, nobody has been there. Nobody's been to National Park. So I find that really strange. So it's interesting that you've come and you've done that.
I think it maybe goes back to the point we said like about maybe we take for granted what's around us, right? So like sometimes when I post like a video or something like somewhere in Malaysia, people say, oh, saya orang Malaysia pun tak pernah sampai. Which is I guess maybe because it's there, you might be used to it. Like for me in the UK, there's a lot of places I haven't been. Because I guess it's kind of when it's on our doorstep, we think,
yeah, it's true. I've been to where the hills are. What's that called?
Lake District.
Lake District. Yeah. So I've climbed that, which is like only like 1,000 meters. Oh, it's the highest. It's the highest peak in UK.
Yeah, and it's like in Malaysia, it would just be a bukit, right?
Bukit,
like a hill, right?
Yeah. So have you been to? Have you scaled Mount Kinabalu?
Not Kinabalu. The highest one I've done in Peninsula was Gunung Tahan.
Hey, Tahan is harder to climb than Kinabalu.
That was a challenge.
Yeah,
we took the easy one, which is the Meropo route.
Yeah.
My plan is to do Kinabalu.
Kinabalu is, no matter what people say, it's a tough climb. I've done it twice. Don't do 2 days, 1 night. Take your time. So, yeah. So now you've branched to a more corporate side. I see you in LinkedIn. I see you in. So tell me about that.
Okay, so what's interesting is actually, I think it was one of your podcasts recently talking to Hanif and Ian, right? They talk about persona. So I always felt like there was 2 sides to me. There's this persona of the Matsalleh Cari Makan, which is like what people see in the content. And then there's actually the me behind the persona, right? And I kind of realized like, okay, what I'm doing a lot is as a content creator, you sort of have this persona. You have the way you act, the way you talk, what you do. And I realized like actually a lot of people don't know who is Rhys actually, right? Is he this guy like, oh, this Matsalleh guy, he just goes around eating, like what's his job? Does he work, And I realized that, okay, we're actually doing a lot of interesting stuff in my company. We're making content for clients. Where I would say 90% of our work is actually not on my stuff, but I don't talk about it anywhere. And then I realized like, okay, if I start talking about it on Twitter, IG, people find it interesting, but it's not really the audience that wants to see the more business, the more sort of behind the persona. That's when I thought I'll start to be active on LinkedIn. So I've had my LinkedIn account for years, but I've never posted anything. I don't think it would like really like, how do you say, like kena, right? If you suddenly post a food review, like, wow, sedap niya on LinkedIn.
But you'll be surprised,
That's the thing. I'm still very new there.
Yeah,
so.
You'll be very surprised because a lot of people think, and I hate this, humble to receive this, honored to do this. And I keep telling people, listen, if you're humble, you won't be here. So
yes, exactly, right? Or so happy to achieve, right?
So happy to achieve. So, and I caught some of your stuff, and it's really interesting. And I feel LinkedIn is perfect for people who want to explore that avenue you're talking about. Because you know why? Company accounts don't actually work.
Yes.
Like Tony Fernandez is more famous than Asia will ever be. Yes. So, so what you're doing is cutting through. So coming back to that, if I was a new content creator and, you've enjoyed quite a bit of success, I saw your YouTube channel and stuff like that. What's the tips you'd give me? What makes you different and how did you cut through?
I think this would apply to any platform.
Okay.
Is you have to be authentic. I think, although it's a bit of a, I guess you could say oxymoron, right? Because we just spoke about personas, then talk about authentic. I think you can have multiple personas and be authentic.
I do completely agree with you as long as you're
not faking it, right?
You're not faking it, yes.
So I think authenticity is important. And I think over the last 10 years since I started blogging, 7 years of doing video, there's been a lot of creators who have come and gone. And I mean, if we look at Malaysia in terms of like foreigners who come here, they make videos as well. There's been a lot who have sort of come and gone. There's a lot of people that go through that sort of cycle. I think one of the biggest things I would recommend is you have to be authentic, because when you're authentic, you don't need to think so much. You don't need to put on anything.
A false persona.
Yes, right. You don't have to pander to certain people. And I sort of struggled that with a while, because I feel like a lot of people, they create for their audience. Whereas actually you should create based from your authentic self. And then the right audience will come to you.
Welcome to another edition of the Book of Jake. My name is Jake Abdullah. I have a very special guest here who actually I linked up in LinkedIn, Rhys Williams or Rhys Woodfield, right?
I mean, my full name is Rhys William Woodfield, but people here call me Rhys William.
Okay, so Rhys Williams is also a name of a football player from Liverpool,
yes,
which I'm a huge fan of. The club, not Rhys Williams, the footballer. Long story. Anyway, before we go anywhere, please like, share and subscribe. Again, we are talking to very interesting Malaysians. Ironically, he has been in Malaysia for 13 years, so we'll bestow upon you Malaysian citizenship.
Honorary Malaysian, right? For today, right?
And it's really interesting because Rhys, a bit of background about Rhys, he's got a very successful YouTube and also a blog channel who talks about food, Matsalleh Cari Makan.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So before we get into that, tell us about your journey into Malaysia and what's the Matsalleh doing in Malaysia? He was settled down for almost a decade.
I think what's the journey sort of started unintentionally.
Okay.
I think that's how a lot of things happen, right? We sort of go with the flow. So I actually came to Malaysia on holiday in 2012.
Okay.
So it was just a holiday, I think 2-3 weeks, came here just to sort of go around typical sort of tourist places.
How did you know that this is going to be a nice tourist destination? Or?
I think I was recommended a lot.
Okay.
And I mean, at that sort of time and that age, a lot of my friends were doing the traditional backpacking, right? Like starting around Southeast
So you would
Asia.
have been like 21 at that time?
I think that time would have been 2012, would have been around 20.
Okay. Oh.
So I didn't want to do the typical thing. So I thought I'd rather go to one country that's maybe a little bit off the typical path.
Okay.
But it has the same sort of things, you know, like nice.
We were colonized, come on.
Yes, right. Well, long before my time, right? Okay, wow.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that was how it started. And then when I came here on that trip, I just felt like, okay, 2-3 weeks is not enough for me. I wanted to come back. So a year later, I actually came back for longer. The plan was originally 2 months. Tried to extend beyond 2 months. It became 6 months, a year. And then now, you know, here we are.
It's 12 years. So what were you doing prior to coming here? What were you actually studying, or were you working? Or
So I actually finished my studies. I had started my own business. So we were doing digital marketing, a bit of content, website design, that sort of thing.
Okay.
I was doing that kind of, you could almost say freelance. Most of my clients we were working online.
Okay. So you could be a digital nomad.
Yes, exactly. And I think back then the concept of digital nomad was quite new. So I kind of found that, okay, as long as the internet is good, I adjust my wake and sleep time to follow the UK time.
Okay.
It would actually run perfectly fine, even though I was in Malaysia.
Okay.
So that's how I sort of managed to, okay, maybe we can make it work.
Exactly.
So if you create with fake, not authentic, you might attract people that you want, but you will never sustain that because they're not really coming for you. But
and
actually,
if you put on that same persona all the time outside, and it's so difficult because I saw somebody on TV who was doing a sports show, and it's really fake, you know, fake foreign accent. It was just going on, and I was like, how do you even speak to somebody else like that? You know, so so what I liked about your videos is the authenticity, and you really were having a good time, and it's not like some fake Matsalleh who came here to capture their audience, or that you're enjoying yourself and you like being there. Yeah.
And I think that's probably one of the reasons why I've been able to do it for so long, because I actually enjoy it. I've never been someone who would look at the numbers or like, oh, this video didn't go viral. What can we do? Oh, what's something controversial we can take? Because then if you're not authentic, so I kind of feel like when you are authentic, you attract people that are interested, and you have to also accept that won't be everyone. Because if you're
Very good point.
You'll only get the people that are interested in what you're offering. And I think it's kind of a marketing principle anyway, right? Is you're not, for any product or anything, you're not trying to target everyone.
Exactly.
You'd rather get people that are interested. And I think it's the same with content. If you are your authentic self, the people that resonate with that will come to you. So that's, I guess, one tip.
Have you ever thought of working with the Ministry of Tourism?
There's been a few projects we've done in the past, like very simple sort of projects. I find one of the interesting things is I'm kind of stuck in the middle where my content is mostly consumed by Malaysians. So it wouldn't make sense for me to do content targeting international. I'm quite frank with the fact that the people who watch my content are Malaysians. I'm not trying to masquerade as, I'm helping promote Malaysia to the world. We do have some platforms with English content, but my content is mostly Malaysian. So I think working with tourism would be, how do we tie it with local tourism?
Yes. I see your point. So how long do you think you're going to be sustaining this in Malaysia? Or is this going to be, not Malaysia, my second home, Malaysia, my first home, UK, my second home?
I do feel like UK is my second home now. I always feel a bit awkward, jungle, right? Going back. I think for me, I always think of as long as there's riziki, right? As long as things are working, things are going well, I'll definitely be in Malaysia. I don't see myself being a content creator for my own platforms forever. I mean, now if you compare to say 1 or 2 years ago, I guess you could say the volume of content has gone down a lot, partly because we're making a lot for clients and also partly because I want to do it when I enjoy it. So I kind of see the long term would definitely be in Malaysia. I see there being a transition from Rhys, the makan guy, to, Rhys does a little bit of this, but then actually is more of a content creation guy for other people as well.
So I'm a new restaurant and I want to procure your services.
Okay.
How do I do that?
So we just started our website, mscm.my.
Say that again?
mscm.my.
MSCM.
So it used to be Matsalleh Cari Makan.
Okay, MSCM.
So now we call it MSCM Studios.
Okay.
So it kind of brings everything in.
Okay.
Or anyone can send me a message. Normally, we don't just take anyone. We sit down and see, is there a fit first? Because we really want to see, can we actually add value to these people? Is our service something that would benefit them? So the best thing to do would be to get in touch. Then we sit down, have a chat and see if there's some way to work together. Then we'll work together.
So how do I follow you on socials?
So you can search Matsalleh Cari Makan, normally on like Facebook, YouTube, I think even TikTok. If you search Matsalleh Cari Makan, my face will come up somewhere. Okay, there you go. That's the easiest way. I mean, my name's Rhys Williams, but nowadays you search Matsalleh Cari Makan, it will be my face that comes up. So that's the easiest way.
Shocking. So when I told the girls, I sort of know Matsalleh Cari Makan. Yeah.
As long as they sort of know. If they're like, siapa? Then I'll be like, okay, alamak.
So any parting words to it's been fantastic getting to know you, and what I truly enjoy is when the appreciation comes from somebody not from Malaysia, but this country, because I feel it's such a melting pot and we are forgetting that. So you sort of have an external view of this and you have very easily sort of amalgamated among the people. You're like one of us now. And I find that really incredible. So any parting words too?
I mean, I think my parting word on that subject would be, it's very easy to take for granted what's around us. And this is not just where we live, but everything around us. Sometimes the best thing we can do is be grateful and appreciate what we have, because we do actually have a lot, even for ourselves, wherever we are in our life, wherever we live, there's a lot around us. But maybe it's kind of like, I don't know if it's you can't see the wood for the trees or whatever. You're not
forest for the trees, yeah.
Yes, right. You're not looking for it.
Blinkers on, and
exactly. Like everyone thinks about overseas, the next big thing, or when I get here, I'll be happy, I'll enjoy it. Actually, we can start with what we have around us.
That's fantastic. Great thoughts. I wish you all the success.
Thank you.
Like I said, support
MSCM.
MSCM.my, right?
MSCM.my, yes.
.my, which is my for Malaysia. And, perhaps I'll take you out for Nasi Lemak Burung Hantu one of these days.
Yes, right. Yeah, we
should do it. We should. I had it yesterday. They have this. See, I'm straying again. They have this nasi basmati with the nasi lemak.
That's it.
That's amazing. Anyway, guys, like, share, subscribe, and also if you want to pick up the Book of Jake, it's at www.bookofjake.my. Okay. Till then, please support my friend Rhys Williams Woodfield. Okay.